Sonic the Sunday strips. These are related to STC, but aren't canon to it. We start out with things being pretty generic for Sonic. Sonic is a Captain Obvious while freeing an animal from a badnik, and Eggman is humiliated by Sonic jumping on his head. And of course, Eggman has to be using the Sonic 1 Eggmobile, because we didn't get enough of it. Somehow wondering how these strips are more serious. But maybe this is just a pointless comedy page. It just seems weird to have the main villain be relegated to comedy relief. Especially with how menacing Robotnik would go on to be in STC. Oh yeah, and Sonic even breaks the fourth wall at one point, which was supposed to be just early Archie's thing. On the next page, Sonic is the Captain Obvious again, collecting rings as he hits a spring in Springard Zone. But then apparently one of the rings is stuck. And oh, that's a cool twist. Eggman had thought ahead enough to put super glue on one of the rings. So Sonic's got stuck to his hand. That was really clever and genre savvy of him. But of course, Sonic was already in the air, so we had no problem hitting Eggman on the head anyways and freeing the badniks. Okay, I guess it does make sense that his hand being stuck to a ring would just be a minor inconvenience, considering he usually does stuff with his spines and feet anyways. But it's frustrating that this tense, genre-savvy plan where Eggman took advantage of stuff from the video games didn't have any sort of consequences. We should see Sonic have to run off the Porker to go get the super glue when the ring melted away. Besides, don't rings work in a way where you touch them and they go into your aura like energy? Sonic could never actually carry every ring in his own at once, so that has to be how it works. So logically, putting glue on a ring shouldn't matter because it just dissolved into him anyways. But the comic doesn't even say that. It's like a Wile E. Coyote story where Sonic's the Roadrunner again, like in those SEC yearbook stories where it's all about Sonic winning effortlessly. Because they're trying too hard to make him look cool. And that's kind of fine, except Robotnik shouldn't be just a silly comedy character in this comic, and I need his easy victories to make sense. But I guess it made sense here. Also, isn't it a waste of comic space to have the word Sonic and a giant logo of big letters in every page? They could have had an extra panel's worth of content there, and no other Sonic comic does that. It's not even like it's Sonic the Sunday special, it's just Sonic the Hedgehog. So, it's not like it's the title of the page. Anyways, as I expected, the next page is also a time skip, like it's a Wile E. Coyote skit. Sonic says he's not going anywhere, and in a total standstill, and that's because he's running towards a fan. Like in Starlight Zone, but at least he's in a generic field instead of Starlight Zone for originality's sake. Of course, this fan doesn't bother Sonic much either, but to be fair, of course Sonic could easily run away. What did Eggman expect? It's not like the fan was a momentary distraction stopping him. And then some conveyor belt would come up below Sonic from underground, and have collapses that collapse onto him to trap him in place. Or walls around the conveyor belt so he wouldn't be able to jump off it. And then there could be a buzzsaw in front of him that would gradually move towards him from the conveyor belt. Even I could think of a better trap than Eggman did here. What was he thinking? Then Sonic sees some crab meats blocking the road. Why can't he just go around them or jump over them? But instead he treats it like a 2D game and runs away from the fireballs of flinging, but there's no indication that there's a wall around Sonic that's forcing him not to just go around the crab meats. I could have seen that if the panels had actual space to them to show me such a wall. Sonic hides behind a tree waiting for Eggman to run up to the badniks and ask if Sonic's defeated yet. And then he runs around Eggman, and the robots endanger their master by mindlessly throwing fireballs. Makes sense at least. Then Sonic almost falls into a bunch of spikes. I guess he'll be fine though. Will he homing attack onto those floating rocks to save himself? At least they bothered to have an extra panel of Sonic almost falling into the spikes for the tension. But really, why does he have the time to say all that Captain Obvious dialogue when he's falling towards spikes that are near him? Surprisingly, he survives by falling between the spikes, and he says hilariously, "Lucky I've been on a diet." I don't appreciate how he says dudes like he's breaking the fourth wall talking to the audience, though. It's always condescending every time Sonic does that in the comics, because it just makes it too obvious that they're aimed at kids and nothing but. Sonic always has done best being aimed at everybody. It's a sign of bad children's media if it can't be enjoyed by anyone but kids. But I can enjoy this at least. But I can't enjoy this joke. It's not like the classic games were constantly in Care Bear's Land with cutesy level visuals. They didn't have an overly saccharine story that would make adults embarrassed to be playing the game. Being good for all audiences is smarter because it's better for having a broader appeal, which gets in more money, and the lackluster sales of colors compared to SD1 proves it. How was I expected to believe Eggman survived falling into a bed of spikes? He's not an android. He's not explained to have rings. In the next page, after Sonic beats a caterpillar underground, Eggman reveals he's finished a weather machine. I love the extra touch that's shaped like an egg, just to make it more his. Impressively, rather than the device exploding for no reason the minute he presses the button, which I was worried about since he ended his text bubble with 3 periods, fortunately the device creates heavy rain and snow, meaning lots of mud and slush to slow down Sonic. Finally, they bother to have the tension last more than 1 page. Sonic's the Captain Obvious again collecting rings, and for some reason we get 2 panels wasted on Eggman pressing the rain button again when I thought he already did last time. Sonic somehow expects us to believe it never rains in Green Hill Zone. Just because it never rained whenever we played it doesn't mean it never rains. If it never rains, how is the grass not all dead from dehydration? That was dumb. I guess that was an attempt at a meta joke. Anyways, while the mud is slowing Sonic down, it also splashes Eggman with mud. I'm impressed that he's staying trapped for more than just 1 panel. Now if Eggman was smart, which a genius would be, he would take advantage of all this time to shoot Sonic in the head. Sonic's giving him more than enough time for that. But then that'd be too dark, so we can't have logic. Eggman goes after Sonic with a Wrecking Ball Eggmobile from Sonic 1, but because he waited so long to try to kill him, he ends up getting struck by lightning. And then he died. No, he didn't. Because that makes sense. At least Sonic is still stuck in the mud and there's still tension because he's worried it's going to land right on top of them. This is exactly the kind of story I want from a story involving just Sonic and Eggman. Things are always happening. It's not like it's just Eggman being insulted for 5 hours. And there's genuine tension lasting a decent amount of time. Wait, what? How did Sonic jump away from the Egg-O-Matic falling towards him when he was stuck in the mud? And Sonic's idea of a witty insult to Eggman is to say the blatantly obvious he already said before. Who thought this line was a good idea? This was an unsatisfying way for Sonic to get a victory. But at least Eggman had the upper hand the whole time for once. Because it got struck by lightning earlier, the Egg-O-Matic blows up, and the explosion sends Sonic and Eggman on a nice little ride instead of killing them. It would have been nice if they explained that they both had rings, and that's why they survived this. This is a comic strip about being close to the games, so it'd be common sense to have Rings' protection power be a canon part of it all the time. A good way to justify the characters taking so much punishment. Instead, Sonic just talks as if he gets energy from them, which is too vague. How could electricity help you against Eggman? There's nothing really to say about the next page. Eggman falls into the mud. The end. Oh good, he switches his weather machine to snow. I thought they would forget all about the weather machine, do another time skip at this rate. I mean, shouldn't it have been kinda obvious that mere rain and mud wouldn't get Sonic killed from the start? In the first issue of Archie, Eggman was sending some mud at Sonic to try to trap him in it. But it was more than just mud. If Thaken was Mega Muck, if Sonic had been tricked into running into some much stickier artificial mud, he wouldn't have been able to escape from the trap. It's not like Eggman activated some acid rain. But that'd be a way too overpowered way of fighting Sonic. He'd win immediately if he did that. Then I'm somehow expected to believe hook, line, and sinker that it never snows on Mobius. I could kinda buy that Green Hill Zone never got snow if it was stated to be in a tropical part of the world, but the mere idea that Mobius never has a snow is just unbelievably stupid, especially since Eggman knows about the concept of it snowing in the first place. So if it never snows on this planet, why does Eggman even know he can make it snow? Sonic gets put in snow, but can't he just jump out of it? He probably did, and that's why he dodged all those fire-spewing buzz bombers, released Pink to be original. But shouldn't Eggman have seen him do that? He must have spin-dashed underground through the snow. It should have been obvious to Eggman that this plan would fail. Snow isn't lethal, unless it's an avalanche. He'd have a better time making ice. He could have frozen a lake or a part of the ocean, sent Sonic into it, and then melted the ice on him to make him sink. Or better yet, drilled a hole in the ice and sent him into the freezing cold water. But he couldn't be written to do that, because then Sonic would lose. Also, why would Sonic make a pun against himself when he's in danger? That doesn't fit the mood of the scene. Sadly, they barely tried to make Sonic surviving make sense. Sonic just found an old rabbit hole to hide in, when he had no way of knowing it existed and barely had any time to go look for one when he was in danger. Because him spin dashing underground to escape the situation would be too unrealistic after all the times he did that in the franchise. We gotta have him run away instead, even though he was in all that snow and would have to push through it. Sonic also expects us to believe that his mere sneakers make awesome snow skis. He's officially a Gary Stu in these Sunday strips. Name one flaw he's been shown to have. And they say Sally's the Mary Sue. At least she had mean moments sometimes. But Sonic's not even that much of a jerk. Oh, I like this. Eggman switches his weather machines to instant thaw. I love this machine of his. There's so much variety in what he can do against Sonic. Sonic expects us to believe skiing's easy using his power sneakers when they don't look built for that. Then he falls into slush because the snow turned into it. But he's of course able to start using the super peel in the slush anyways. Naturally, Eggman's scared of getting hurt by him. Then the whole hillside gives way and a mudslide starts heading towards them. And Sonic and him waste time talking about it instead of immediately running away. Landslides are lethal, so Eggman shouldn't survive this. Instead, the mud takes them for a friendly little ride instead of drowning them, though it is at least mildly amusing that Sonic snarked, "Getting tangled up with you, Doc, sure ain't my idea of fun." Then he bounces off his stomach, saying it makes a great springboard, and leads him to his fate, which will somehow survive. Then Sonic decides to destroy Eggman's weather machine to get Mobius back to normal. Why would his machine affect the entire planet's weather and not just the weather of this small region? The former would take much more effort and energy. Also, I guess it is a relief that Sonic actually heard Eggman talking about his weather machine out loud, and it wasn't like he wasn't able to hear him just because he talked after he lost, and Sonic was taking off on him. But I was still confused that he said this at first when he made no acknowledgement of the idea that there was a weather machine at all before this. He's disappointed that there's a Badnik army surrounding the weather machine, but he always beats them in one hit, so I don't know why he talked like there was any tension. If anything, it's better that he gets Badnik sent to him so we can have an opportunity to free the people inside. So he should be happy. Shockingly, he doesn't beat all the Badniks here in one hit, and instead has to dodge some fire first, probably because he wasted time talking about the fact that they were there instead of killing them right away. So the tension is kept up. Eggman uses his weather machine to freeze the entirety of Green Hill Zone, and we can see it affecting the civilians as well, which is better for the tension than Eggman just bothering Sonic and predictably losing all the time like in the games. Again, how the hell am I expected to believe this kind of extreme weather never happens on Mobius? Why is this bird written to say that there's never been ice on Mobius before? How did Eggman think to do this with a weather machine then? Talk about a Mary Sue-topia in planet form. Oh, it's so great that there's never any snow or ice and it doesn't even rain. Sonic runs around the civilians to melt the ice that they're trapped in with friction, because I guess the convection of the heat of the melting ice around them goes on to melt the ice that they're frozen in that Sonic didn't even touch. Makes sense. It sure is lucky Sonic happened to run the direction of the civilians and noticed that they needed help when he was dealing with Badniks earlier. Then out of nowhere, most of Eggman's Badniks got iced as well, even though there's minions and he had no reason to get them trapped in ice. So Sonic beats the Badniks and taunts Eggman for not melting the ice around them fast enough, even though Eggman had plenty of time to do that while Sonic was busy freeing the civilians. Eggman goes into his Eggomatic and sends fireballs out of it. I like that Sonic looked serious at it to keep the tension up. But since Sonic's fast, he easily jumps on Eggman's head, which wouldn't have happened if Eggman had thought to fly higher so Sonic couldn't jump up to him. Like, higher than that palm tree. But I guess if Eggman flew too high up, he wouldn't be able to properly aim at Sonic because he'd have to look too far down at him. But really, he was doomed from the start because he did nothing to keep Sonic from moving out of the way. He could have won if he dropped the fireballs so that they surrounded Sonic and the flames were high up enough to trap him. And Sonic couldn't burrow underground because it was a metal floor. He would have won if he had waited until he was right above Sonic to use the fireballs instead of giving him an early warning. Eggman really is being an idiot, which is contradictory since he's smart enough to make all these inventions. Sonic breaks something off his Eggomatic to sabotage it, and they start heading straight for his weather machine. Somehow Eggman thinks both he and Sonic are doomed, when Sonic should be able to just jump out of the Eggmobile and land on his feet just fine. Not Eggman because he's a human, so he'd be more realistic behaving by definition, and he's fat, so his landing would be even worse. Okay, Eggman has a good reason to panic here. Sonic jumps out of the Eggmobile and so does Eggman, and while there is realistic consequences in that Eggman knocked himself out from the hard landing with the ice, Sonic grabbed onto a tree when he fell. So I'm glad they tried to justify him being fine. The weather returns to normal because the Eggomatic exploded on the weather machine. Wait a minute, how does that make sense? Wouldn't it make more sense for Sonic to use the weather machine to create a sunny day? Instead, you'd think the ice would just stay there and everyone would have to wait for the sun to melt it. That was a forced happy ending. We could have at least seen Sonic run to create friction that melted some of the ice in the zone. Have him do a heroic thing again instead of just avoiding Eggman's traps. Then a rabbit civilian tells Sonic his brother got taken to a cave to be turned into a badnik. Actually, this doesn't carry the same weight as it would if his brother was going to be roboticized instead, because all Sonic would have to do is destroy a badnik in one hit. So I'm not sure whether they're all taking this so seriously. Ooh, here's a surprise. It turns out the rabbit was forced by Eggman to fool Sonic. Wait, here's another twist. The rabbit's just a lifelike robot instead. To be fair, it does make more sense, because if being turned into a badnik just requires Sonic to easily free you in one hit, then really it's just a mild inconvenience. So none of the civilians have any reason to take Eggman seriously enough that they would betray Sonic to protect themselves. Because what's he gonna do? Turn them into a badnik for 3 minutes? Who cares? We never see the badniks do anything really horrible, like destroy cities or cause long-lasting damage to regions of the world. They just try to fight Sonic and fail. But if Eggman can simply make a lifelike civilian robot, why doesn't he make a robot that looks just like Sonic to ruin his reputation? Why doesn't he do this a lot more often to ruin Sonic's trust in the random civilians? I'm surprised an overpowered invention like the infiltrator robot concept ended up being such a common idea in the franchise. I thought it'd only be in Archie. But instead it's in Sad M, Fleetway, and even a non-canon comedy strip of STC. And it's in the Sonic X comic too. It's weird that it shows up so much when it just makes you wonder why it didn't ruin Sonic's reputation that way. Sonic's stilted dialogue reveals that, like I was suspecting, Eggman always turns people into badniks in this cave. Then all of a sudden, Sonic falls into a trapdoor despite his super speed. I guess off-screen he stood still at a dead end from not knowing where to go next, and that's why he fell into it. He fights caterpillars, and once again he's impressively one-upped and vulnerable for once, as some fat brains put a net over him. I'm guessing he'll easily spin dash right out of it though, making it entirely forced that he took this seriously in the first place. Impressively, they keep the tension for a few panels, where he somehow wonders how he's supposed to get out of the net. But then, after a spiked chandelier almost falls on him somehow missing, he simply takes off running and that gets him out of it. Maybe because the sheer force of him bursting off from his super peel-out is enough to break past the net, but a spin dash would have made more sense. Then Eggman wonders if Sonic could outspeed a river of lava. Shouldn't it be obvious he will? Of course he does, and he jumps up some wooden spiked chandeliers that look like mere boxes at first. They're wooden in a place with lava. He jumps through the hole in the ceiling to escape the lava and says, "The dude who writes these scripts sure doesn't like me much." Well, it could get a lot worse. You could have your home permanently destroyed, or get separated from most of your friends. Eggman threatens Sonic again. I guess he got here so fast because of his Eggomatic, and he taunts Sonic that he's gonna sink into the lava with a platform. What's great about the stories after the first few are that Sonic's not being annoyingly cocky and smug the entire time. He's genuinely taking things seriously when he's in danger to keep the tension up, and only acts cocky when he's actually attacking Eggman. He doesn't act smug and tease him until right when he's actually succeeded at something. The modern game should have been like that. Because Eggman flew too close to Sonic and his Eggomatic, Sonic was able to jump high enough to grab onto the edge of it and save himself from the lava. He could have easily avoided this. He should just have an Eggmobile that has a dome over it so that he can lean forwards and see Sonic's demise from way higher up, without risking himself falling over and out of the Eggmobile. With all the good advice and better plans I have for Eggman, it's a good thing he couldn't hear all of my suggestions. If he had a sidekick with actual common sense, and he was willing to take his advice, he would have won pretty quickly. But somehow Eggman all across the whole franchise will never get both of these. Eggman tries to bring Sonic to the biggest tree in Marble Zone to send him off at it, and Sonic eventually jumps out after messing with Eggman so that he ends up almost landing in the lava, and someone from off screen says that lava landing is not a good idea. But I guess it's just Sonic who's saying that and not Grimer. Eggman would logically die of convection just from being in the Eggmobile in the lava, and the lava would heat up so much that it'd kill him. At least we're told that some buzz bombers carried him away from the lava to kinda explain how he survived. Those badniks must be really strong. Then out of complete fucking nowhere, it turns out that Sonic had not only discovered the existence of his rabbit infiltrator, but also reprogrammed it to be good. We really could have used Porker in this situation. Well, it sounds interesting to have Sonic be a genius programmer as well, like he's at an AOSCH too. It makes him look like even more of a Gary Stu creator's pet when he infringes on the territory of the skills his friends are there to specialize in. When the Sonic franchise started adding more characters than just Sonic and Eggman, the stories were no longer just about empowerment. They were also about balance. The other characters in Sonic needed good qualities Sonic didn't have to justify themselves. And for that to work, Sonic needed to suddenly lack those qualities. So in Sad AM, Sonic was an idiot so that Sally and Rotor could be the smart ones. Having Sonic able to reprogram something by himself that he shouldn't even know exists yet, when he doesn't even have access to stuff he can reprogram with, just makes him even more overpowered and makes any sort of engineer friend he could have pointless. It's bad enough Porker barely got to do anything in SCC. He was 7 times less useful than Rotor was. I don't think he even did up to 20 things that mattered. Well, this was a pretty great set of stories. Occasionally Sonic's victories were too easy, but for the most part they had the tension last a decent amount of time for a change. Eggman's plans against him were pretty fun, taking advantage of stuff from the games, and the Weather Machine had a ton of variety to it. I just wish they explained Eggman had rings so I knew how he survived all that slapstick. There's more Sunday strips after this, as you'll see.